So what we're going to do on this playlist here on the After the Ride YouTube channel is we're going to go ahead and talk about certain topics. We're going to talk about what is the best beginner motorcycle like today? What kind of gear do I look for? Like what do I look for in a helmet? What do I think is the best bike for this and this and this and this? We're going to kind of talk about some of these things or some ideas on some of the newer stuff, how the industry is going. Basically, my opinion piece of who I am as a person. So if you guys are new to this, what's happening here is that my name is Daniel. I run the Dan the Fireman YouTube channel. I talk about motorcycle safety. I talk about hazard perception, all these different things. Using my experience from being a firefighter EMT for 10 and a half years, an MSF rider coach, and an accident scene management instructor. So that's where I pull my expertise. So I feel like I have something to say when it comes to some stuff motorcycle related, and then possibly the safety side, mainly of motorcycle riding. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what is a best beginner motorcycle. Now that is a big question on the internet every day, all day. I get it a ton of times, and I know a lot of people that have YouTube channels get it a ton of times, and then obviously you'll ask your friend and they're going to get it a ton of times. At the end of the day, there is a set of things that you want to look out for and how it fits you as a person. And it's not necessarily how it is when it comes to, what looks the best. We'll go ahead and talk about that. So what is the best beginner motorcycle? I focus on the why a lot. Why would this bike be good for you? So my biggest thing is that it has to fit you. It really has to fit you. And when I talk about that, there's a bunch of different things. There's ergonomics, so how you're sitting while you're cruising or riding. And then you also talk about, how does it fit you as a person? If you're a tiny person, you're going to want to have your feet down, especially if you're a new rider. You're going to want to be able to get your feet down at least flat foot. If the best thing is to be able to flat foot and have a bend in the knees. That is probably one of the best, most comfortable situations for a new rider. So are you a new rider or experienced rider? If you have experience, having your feet down is not going to be the biggest deal. So the seat height is not going to be the biggest deal for somebody that's a little bit more experienced. For me, for instance, I'm a 30-inch inseam, and then on the Sportster, on the Rebel, on the Scouts, all these cruiser bikes, I can easily flat foot. But on my Indian FTR 1200, I can't. So I don't think my bike, just based on fitment, if you're a shorter person, wouldn't be good for you. And I haven't even talked about size and power. I haven't talked about that yet. So if you're not comfortable getting on a bike and then holding it up by standing still, it's going to be a huge thing for you. So if you're a new rider, look for something that you're going to be able to get your feet down, okay? At least one good foot flat-footed where you're comfortable. So the best way you can do that is go to the dealership, sit on some bikes. You don't even have to ride them yet. Sit on some bikes, figure out what kind of fits you in that aspect. So if you're doing that, you're sitting on a bike, you can flat foot. Now we're going to go ahead and look at, part of the fitment is, are you hunched over? Are you sitting back? Are you comfortable? Are the pegs underneath your feet? Because a lot of beginners like to have mid controls so they can just easily put their foot down. Is it forward controls? Can you reach? Can you do all these different things? So fitment is really a very important thing when it comes to a beginner motorcycle, okay? So make sure you get that fitment right. You might be looking at some bike that you think looks amazing on the internet or on paper, or you've seen in person, you've never sat on it, never done any of that stuff. You go buy it, and then you finally sit on it, and it's not what you like, and you're gonna be very disappointed. And I don't want you guys to be disappointed. So go to a dealership, sit on some bikes, see how it feels. Is it comfortable to you? Does it fit like a glove almost? That is very important, okay? So the next thing that you want to look for, let's say we found the bike, let's just call it a Ninja. It's a Ninja. I don't know if it's 300, 400, 600, whatever it is. It's a Ninja. So we're going to sit on this bike. We absolutely love it. Now we need to figure out what kind of model should we get. Should we get the 300? Should we get a 600? All these different things. So size and power is going to be the next one. So now we have to start thinking about how we're going to use this bike. Okay, so let's start thinking about it. Are we just going to go from the house to work? Okay, what's the distance from house to work? Is it a long distance? Are you commuting on the interstate? Are you going through stop and go traffic? What is it your typical use case for this bike? Okay, so that's what we're going to have to figure out. And then if you want to go off-road, well, we're looking at Ninjas, so now we have to go back to fitment for adventure bikes. So that's pretty important. But let's say we figured out we're just going to use this in town. We're gonna go from home to work, work to home, maybe run some errands here and there. It's going to be my only vehicle. This is a typical thing. It's going to be my only vehicle. This is all I can afford. So I want to be able to just go from to school, work, all this other stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you, what do the roads look like? So going from home to school could be on the interstate. It could be these long stretches of rural road. It could be straight into town. And now you're having to deal with all the traffic and stuff. So if you have a long commute from work to home to work, home to school, all that stuff, and it involves an interstate, you're going to want to have something with a little more power than the 300. I mean, you're going to want to have something that can handle highway speeds, and a dealer, and it will help you out. But within sport bikes, adventure bikes, cruisers, they all have what's called a different power band. They all are tuned differently, and you're gonna have to figure out something with that, because a Ninja like 500, 600. About a 600cc Ninja sport bike, anything like that can handle interstate speeds for a while. Okay, they can do pretty good. But if you do that with like a cruiser, it's gonna be running it pretty hard. So they're differently tuned. So now we're gonna have to figure out different fitments for different bikes. But let's go with the Ninja model on this one. So we want a sport bike. We'll just say sport bike. We'll go on a sport bike model, and we are going to be doing half of it's going to be on the interstate, and then half's going to be in town. So you're definitely going to need something higher power to handle that interstate portion, but then the higher power might be a problem in town in some areas. So maybe think about, well, what's a different route? You can go through town the whole way. Perfect. Then we can easily go along with a Ninja 300. That's a great beginner bike. You're going to learn quite a bit on the 300. It's not going to be too powerful, but it's still going to be pretty powerful to handle a lot of situations if we just stay away from the interstate. So that's where I'm kind of going at with size and power. A lot of people say, well, I have to get a 1000. I have to get it. I have to. That's what everyone's getting. You have to pick the CC range for you. Okay, so if another example would be to think of like a car. Do you need a sports car, or do you need a car with 4 doors and that will just at least get you from point A to point B with some passengers? What are you going to use it for? They're both cars. Okay, they're both in the same situation, but what are you using for? So you need to figure out the price the power and size of the bike in that aspect. If you're going to do only in town, you live in an apartment complex, and you never leave town, a scooter would probably be even better, because clutchless, all these different things, and 125 cc is all you're going to ever need. So really figure out what you're going to be doing with that. So don't focus too much on the looks and I have to get a certain size. Tailor it to what you're going to be doing. And depending on the model, and this is where you're going to get a lot of information from the dealership, is that they'll tell you, hey, this is going to probably cut it a little close. If you're going to be doing this, look at this model. And if you have a reputable dealer, that won't be a problem. So we talked about fitment, we talked about size and power. Now let's talk about should I buy used or new? Something like that. Should I buy, straight from the dealership, brand spanking new, 2 miles on it because they had to test ride it before they put it on the lot, and then or should I get used from a garage sale or from Craigslist and stuff like that? There's a huge range in between when it comes to that. New or used, it really depends on your budget. Here's the thing, is that we talked about fitment, we talked about size and power. Can you afford all of that new? If you went in there thinking you could, then just get new. Do you think you might be able to find a better deal on Craigslist? You might, but if you go into there with a budget that that this is what you want to pay for and you can afford it, and it's not, the price really isn't that big of a deal, this is something you want to get into, then just buy new. You know for a fact that it's going to be straight from the dealer. It's going to have a warranty, a dealer warranty. And then you can also get extended warranties and all these other things. It was test road. It was inspected and put together by the mechanic, and they should be taking care of it, especially if you get it from a reputable dealer. You're going to get these things, and it's got 0 miles. You are the one, or 2 miles, basically. You know that you're going to be the one riding every single mile, and you know what goes into that every single mile. Or you can go used. And let's just jump to Craigslist. So going used, you find a bike that it's a couple years old. It's about 10,000 miles. It's not so bad. Let me go check it. You go over there. There's no paperwork. The guy says he'll work with you. Oh, and there's an issue here, or maybe it could be immaculate. I don't know. But then you start having questions and doubts. Remember, we're talking beginner motorcycle here. You don't want to have questions and doubts when it comes to what's you're riding, what you're practicing on. You don't know if the rim is in good condition. What about the tires? Is there a plug in there? Did you do a good inspection? Have you been leaking fluids? How's the engine? Is it still doing good? Has it seized because the guy hasn't been taking care of it, and then he was able to do his magic or get it fixed or do some type of backyard fix? You don't know. You have no idea. What about since it's brand new, or you're brand new to riding and the bike's not? How do you know that those are all original parts, original levers? Ones if you just dropped the bike, dented and broken them, or all these different things. So these are all things you want to look for when you go for used. And we can go into a whole aspect of what to look for in a used bike. But, I mean, peace of mind with new versus Craigslist used, that's when you're going to start having problems. That's when you're going to start having doubts, and you're just now getting into it. So there's an in-between. And this is what I also would look at, especially if you can get a good deal. Go to it, find a dealership that sells used bikes. And before they can sell those bikes off the lots, they're going to certify it with their mechanic. They're going to make sure it's ready. If it needed new tires, they're going to put new tires on it. They're going to clean the chain. They're going to do all the stuff, replace the fluids. They're going to get it ready. They're going to put in a service on that bike before they sell it, because it's a huge liability if they sell it off the lot and it's not road ready. If it's in a bad position, it's just not good. Bad position. I'm talking like Dan and the Fireman on the channel. But that's another thing you can go for. So I would look, as a new rider, I would look at new and then certified used, or sold at a dealership used, like a reputable dealership. And that goes for used. Go for new also. Used, that you have to have like an uncle or somebody or yourself that understands what to look for, how to look for it. But remember, we're talking best beginner motorcycle. So you are a beginner and you are already trying to learn the aspects of motorcycling. And now we're having you jump in there and try to understand the aspects of the mechanic side of motorcycling. That will definitely come later if you choose to. Some people have enough money to just don't even care about the mechanics. They'll do the daily maintenance if they have to, and they'll send it off to do a bunch of other stuff. But I wouldn't look too much into the used market. I would mainly just go to the dealership, sit on a bunch of bikes, find out what I'm going to be using it for, going off-road, adventure, sport bike. I want to do sport bike, cruiser, all these different things. I'd go to that niche and I would find which bike fits fine for me, which bike I can feel comfortable reaching forward on the forward controls, on the handlebars, so all the primary controls, and where I'm comfortable. I feel like I'm going to be comfortable for what I'm going to be using it for. I want to go, from home to school, and half of it's going to be on the interstate. So I want to sit on something that I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to like. Okay, so now that I found something like that, now I'm going to need to go into size and power. So size and power, I'm going to need to, I'm going to sit on a Rebel 300 and it's like, I love this bike, absolutely love it, but I'm going to go on the interstate. But it's only going to be 65 miles an hour. Okay, the 500cc is going to do okay for that. So I should probably get the Rebel 500 instead of the Rebel 300 that I've been sitting on, and they both still feel amazing. Now that I see the Rebel 500 and this is something I like, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I love it. Am I going to buy it new or used? I'm going to ask the dealer while I'm there, do you have any certified used bikes like this? Do you have a Rebel 500 in the back or whatever it is? And then I'm going to get the pricing for it. Or I can look online to see if there's any Rebel 500s online. And then I may or may not find any, especially if it's a new model. I can't find any new Rebel 500s used on Craigslist or anything right now, because the 2017s pretty much started the new model looking thing. So you might not even find the bike that you want and like on as a used bike. So you might have to just buy new. So that's kind of the aspect where I'm going. It could be an 883. It could be an Indian Scout. It could be, the V-Star. It could be the Yamaha Bolt. It could be all these different things. Just sit on every bike, and whichever one feels good to you, sit on it and take it and go for a ride and figure out if you want new or used, and don't care about brand. You notice how I don't care about brand? I care about fitment, size, and power, new or used. So I can keep going and I can keep talking, but this is why I choose these things. This is why I chose fitment. This is why I chose size and power, and this is why I choose new and used. So I don't care about the brand. What are you going to use it for?